students over the last, my experience with the students in the last 3 sessions is that they're awesome. I learned a lot from them about the conference because we had 2 tracks. So I stayed in the decarbonization track. And so I was paying really close attention to their reports on the other track, and I learned a lot from them. So it's you got some high caliber students, and it's just great to be part of it. So thanks again for letting us be here. And I hope today spurs some thoughts that might not have anything to do with engineering. Is that, you guys ready for a break from engineering, chemistry, and yeah? Maybe Drayton. Okay. So I know you're all smart. What good is that? And I would, if I had time, I'd like to have this conversation with folks who are entering into the energy business. I will encourage you to ask yourself the question, why are you doing what you're doing? Like deep down inside, why are you going to school? Why are you learning about energy? Why are you doing this? And I assume all of you are going to have a different answer for that, but I'm interested in you digging as deep as you can, because what we're going to be talking about for the next 50 minutes is how you're going to translate what wakes you up in the morning into reality. Because from my perspective, education, what's the saying? The person who can read but doesn't is the same as the person who can't read, right? So getting your engineering ideas, which are good, into the real world is what we're going to talk about today. There's when I was talking with Michael about how I should prepare for this, I asked, you know, at what point in the energy program do students learn about life cycle cost analysis and the process of converting engineering concepts into proposals? And he says it's 4th year, it's last year, right, Michael? Ish.
Yeah, it's usually part of your senior design classes, at least for chemical engineering.
So for some of you who are later in your years, maybe you've later in the school career, maybe you've kicked some of these ideas around. Maybe this is new for some of you, but this is intended to be a full-on dialogue. So I've got some concepts to present, but I want to hear your ideas. All right. Let's see. Let's assume that I can make this work. Okay. I did want to mention, we haven't really talked much about McKinstry, so I put this on the left side of the slide. I'm guessing if you want to learn anything about McKinstry, you can ask Michael or Lexi, since they are deeply immersed in it. But it's a big company, family owned, not traded on Wall Street, which is a very important distinction. We're in it. We're a mission driven company. Of course, we make a profit most years, but you could ask those guys more about it. But I'm sharing this thought that, hey, how do you get your ideas implemented? McKinstry is, you know, I should actually go back one slide. This building that's showing in the slide is zero carbon, cross-laminated timber building in Spokane. It's arguably one of the most cutting-edge buildings in the country, maybe not Europe, but McKinstry has figured out how to deliver things like this, a 5-story building completely powered by renewable energy, no natural gas anywhere near the building. This is a concept that gets us really excited. So I hope that, you know, how would you deliver a building like that, right? So let's talk more about this. Here's some ideas we'll cover, just so you see kind of the roadmap. All right, first question. And let's spend about 5 minutes. I want to hear your answers. What is your role? On the right side of this screen is your idea. On the left side of the screen is the money needed to get it implemented. What is your role in the gap between your idea and the money? Let's see. Lexi. I could pick on you. What's your role? Here you are, you're, in college, and you guys, and I guess what I'm really saying is part of it is now as your role at the IIAC, right? You're going to find ideas when you go into these buildings and you're going to put them into a report. I'm thinking a little bit more about when you get your job and you're in the real world, what is your role as an engineer? Do you have nothing to do with this gap? Are you the hand? Are you the bridge? Are you the people? What's your role, Lexi, between your great idea and getting it implemented?
By the way, Lane, I'll just chime in and say, I don't think this is exclusive of the IIC. I think the IIC offers this opportunity now for students.
Oh, good.
I don't think they have to wait because we're in the business of convincing people of good ideas as well.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I didn't realize that was part of the role. That's great. Trayton. Lexi, you're off the hook.
I'll save you, Lexi. Probably the big role that we have is finding the benefit of our good idea and how it can save somebody money or save the environment or whatever we're actually trying to do with it, how it saves something for somebody.
I like the generality. Saving something for somebody, because at first I thought you were going saves money, and that's good. Obviously it's important. But and from my experience, and we'll get into this later, like there's a lot more to this gap than just dollars. Anybody else? Who else? Tell me what you see as your role as an IIAC employee between idea and implementation. Lexi, you had time to think about it. You wanna?
Sorry, can you guys hear me? I'm in a very
Yeah.
loud room. So the question is the implementation between us and like our ideas and then.
Yeah, so you're gonna come up with a great idea when you go into a facility. Yeah, what's your role between that idea and getting it implemented?
I mean, like right now, I think my role is just trying to learn in school as much as I can so that I have the actual skill set I need to implement these ideas, whether that's through working at the IAC or classes or etc.
Okay, cool. Carly.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I'm gonna check. Okay, cool. I think part of our role is to like determine its feasibility for the client. Also, like bringing the right ideas to the right client. Yeah.
Yep. Like the technical aspect of it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Nathaniel.
All right, Raul and I are gonna try and tag team this. I don't know how our microphone works when we have a
It's
split
good.
here, but Raul had the idea. He was talking a little bit about support beams and how we have the responsibility to bridge out as far as we can into the implementation. Obviously, as the IAC, we don't go into implementation, but we should create as much of a detailed, informative structure that helps them, that the company that we're working with, to know what they're going to do in implementation so they can carry and connect the implementation from their side. If you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I just want to add, I got that idea from just like looking at the support beams. So just from the picture, us as sort of IAC students or engineers down in the future can sort of hold up the bridge with the support beams to get them towards the hand, and then later down the line, like towards implementation.
Yeah, Julie, do you want to add?
No, I just love it. It's
Yeah.
great, Raul.
Yeah. So I guess part of the idea here is that there's many steps in the process. There's many roles to play. I like the support beam idea. There's people on the bridge, there's transferring the information, there's calculating the information, there's, so we'll get into that. I just wanted to kind of start the conversation that way. All right. Michael's going to talk here in just a second. Michael, let's go through the next slide, and then I'm going to have you cover what we talked about. Okay. What is your role here? How do you fit into this scene? And why is it important? let's assume you've proposed an idea and it gets here. What's your role? If you are, let's assume that you're not in this room for now. So what is your role in this boardroom where decisions are made? Who are you in this scene? Yeah, Blake, go ahead.
I think one of our roles is to provide information after a technical analysis to be able to convince the people actually spending the money that it's worth spending the project for whatever goal they have in mind, whether that's saving money, saving emissions, saving energy, things like that.
Yeah, I like that word, convince. That's headed in the right direction. Anybody else? What's your role here if you're not in this room? Alex? Sorry, Alex, were you saying something? Okay, no. Okay, yeah. Others? Okay, just give that some thought. Now, what if soon, not too long after you get into your career, you are a person in this room? What's your role as an engineer sitting around this table with people like chief financial officers, chief operating officers, chief accounting officers, chief executive officers, safety? You know, what is your role? There are many of you who are going to end up there. And what you're doing now, in my mind, really matters to prepare you to be around this table. Yeah, Nathan, go ahead. Nathaniel, sorry.
One of the responsibilities kind of as engineers when it comes to us talking with.
Hang on, we're not quite. Can you speak up just a little? Sorry.
Okay, now the speaker, the mic is switched.
Now it's working.
All right. Interesting. This is whack. Okay. So one of the things that I feel like we have a responsibility as engineers when we're speaking with business professionals and those who don't have the technical background is to figure out a way to explain technical background to those who have a lower knowledge in that field. So we have to bridge that gap so that we can have clarity in explaining things. And then you have to speak on the specific points that they are trying to target and say how a process, whether it be a chemical process, a structural change, or whatever we may be implementing for the business, how that will help them to reach their goal. And we can provide statistical analysis of numbers and how it will make things better for them.
I like that answer, especially since you use the word bridge. Because I do see the role of an engineer. I've worked with dozens, hundreds of engineers, and I've been in these boardrooms before. And you absolutely have to get the engineering right in order to carry weight in this room. I will suggest, just for thought, a lot of what your role, from my perspective, is preparing people who are sitting around this table before this meeting happens. And it's a very critical role because all the people, there's a lot of politics, there's a lot of energy flowing around this table. There's history, there's all sorts of stuff that goes on that has nothing to do with engineering. So your role, from my perspective, is to make sure that engineering does not become a reason why the people around this table give your idea a thumbs down. Yeah. Okay, let's move. Michael's going to answer the question of why is this important? Why does it matter in terms of developing the skills and abilities to inform the decisions around this table and eventually be part of the decision made around this table?
I think that I'm not alone in having the feeling that when a really good idea that I've worked on and calculated out is not acted upon. I bet every single one of you is frustrated when good ideas are ignored or priorities are elsewhere and don't allow what you're trying to get accomplished to actually proceed. And I think part of what we do as engineers is get things done. That's why we're engineering and not physics or mathematics. Like we're in the pursuit of constructing things, getting things done, having results to show for our efforts. And so I think it's so important to be prepared to sit at this table, to not be intimidated by people from other backgrounds who are wearing tailored suits and who are striking a powerful posture at the head of the table. It's important to prepare to be at this table, to sit yourself there and to present a persuasive case so that others recognize that your idea is a good one and something worth supporting. So just because we're engineers doesn't mean that we get to sit back and let others, present and push for our work to be done. If you're an engineer who has the ability to connect with decision makers, connect with stakeholders from other departments who have other interests, and bring them to see the value of what you're proposing, that will make sure that your projects go forward. And so preparing to be in this room will help make your projects actually happen, rather than just get scrapped as a good idea, but something else is a higher priority.
If I may, Trayton, I see, let's come back to you in a second. I'm just going to connect back to the first question I asked you, which is, why are you doing what you're doing? I'll answer it for myself, and maybe some of you resonate. Like, I wake up every morning because I have a 7-year-old and I'm very concerned about the world that he's going to inherit. And I want to do every single thing I can do to reduce the amount of carbon that is produced in facilities. So that drive, I'm hoping that you see the connection between you getting good at everything outside of engineering. You got to get engineering straight, right? That's a given. Once you're an awesome engineer and you can produce bulletproof proposals, then comes the real challenge. Because I agree with Michael, like, what good is your engineering degree if all your ideas just end up in the garbage? So I would encourage you to connect with your purpose and recognize, from my perspective, part of your purpose is successfully navigating through the boardroom. Yeah, Trayton, go ahead.
This is a little unrelated, but we've been talking about, being in the room, but all that can run through my head right now is the song from Hamilton, that's The Room Where It Happens. And I want the rest of you to suffer alongside me.
Room where it happened. DJ has set the standard for me. DJ's my boss. And so he's, every meeting has to have either a Hamilton or a Star Wars reference. So thank you, Trayton. Yeah.
Anytime.
Room where it happens. So I'm again ask you the question, do you have a role in the room where it happens? Because my experience with many engineers is like, I'll do my work, put my head down, and then somebody else, it's their job to turn it into reality. And I'm going to encourage you to rethink that, if that is the way you're thinking, because I think you have a role in taking a good idea to the next step. Okay, let's move on. Now I'm going to encourage you to put yourself in decision makers' shoes. Let's assume you did an MBA instead of the chemical engineering degree, and you're the decision maker. Let's say you're the CFO. And every year's budget, you have to make decisions that cut something out of the budget. Let's say you've received this proposal to put these solar canopies in, and it looks good. If you fund this, what are you not going to fund? What if you have two really good engineering proposals? One is, I don't know, controls optimization or something, or a chemical process improvement. If they have equal ROIs, if they have equal NPVs, blah, blah, blah. If you're in that position as the CFO, how are you going to decide which one gets funded this year? And I can tell you, this is what I deal with every day, like helping people who are making decisions about what goes forward and what doesn't. I would encourage you to be empathetic to CFOs and other decision makers who have to decide, because for as much as the CFO might like you, there's somebody else in the company who that CFO also likes and whose passion has produced a proposal that your proposal competes with. And the CFO is going to have to decide, oh man, if I choose Lexi's proposal, then I have to not fund Cameron's proposal. And you're going to get there before too long where you're in this situation where there is always competition for funding because there's never enough time or money or staff. So the more you can think, not just of engineering, but about how do we get through the room where it happens? Hopefully that will encourage. Any thoughts or questions about that? Okay, I'll move on. Okay, now let's get to the nitty gritty. Let's assume you're that CFO. What criteria, what decision criteria matter? Let's hear some ideas. What, you're the CFO, what do you want to see in a proposal? What matters? Anyone?
First of all, that it makes sense.
Okay, so feasibility. Yeah. Anybody else?
That
What
it
matters?
makes money and makes the company look good.
Okay, two different but very important things. Making money, good for the brand.
Maybe that it's energy efficient or doesn't have any adverse impacts on the environment.
It meets the sniff test or the ESG test or some other, social test. Yeah. What else?
I guess making sure that it's like a long-term solution. So like making sure it's an investment and not a Band-Aid.
Good. It's a really good one. I've got like 15 I'm going to share with you here. Anybody else? Okay, that's some good thought time. All right. Operation and maintenance savings. Does it matter? Matters to some, matters a lot to some, especially the folks doing the work, right? Simple payback. Let's see. In the chat. Oh yeah, sorry, I haven't been seeing the chat. Just quickly, on a scale of 1 to 10, just put the number in how important you think simple payback is to a CFO deciding between competing proposals. 12. 8. 9, 8, 9. Okay, pretty high up there. Okay, I'm not gonna, let's just keep going through the options here. ROI. Kind of like simple payback, a little bit more complicated. Maybe less simple. I won't have you answer. I don't want to spend too much time on these. How many of you know what internal rate of return is? Raise hands. Okay, Mariah. All right, roll. I'm not going to dive into this. Oh, yeah, Blake. Do you have a question or you just know? Okay. All right. Getting a little bit more sophisticated in the capital side of things. I'm pretty sure you guys know NPV, net present value, discounting future kind of. Okay. I'm going to just list these so that they will, when you come across them, in my experience, these are somewhat of an increasing importance to CFOs. Life cycle cost analysis to some CFOs, not necessarily others.
Generally, Lynn, the IIAC program, for better or worse, emphasizes simple payback right now.
Okay. And for most decision makers, that's the easiest way to get on the scoreboard. When you have competing proposals, so the more competition you have and the more sophisticated the company is, the more sophisticated the CFO is, the more these other factors are going to come into play. And then you get into other factors. Some customers care a lot about carbon reduction. What about legacy? Some decision makers, whether it's a CFO or CEO or the COO or the board members, they care about legacy and they don't care as much about simple payback or ROI. Prestige, we kind of got to that earlier about, is it good for the brand? What about self-esteem? I have seen situations where decision makers do something because it makes them feel good. And they choose a project that has a worse ROI or a simple payback over a better simple payback project because it feeds their self-esteem. Sometimes there's jealousy. That company's doing that, we got to do it, or we're going to do this because we want to do it before that company does it. And ego. I see this not uncommonly. And I'm just encouraging you to think about, in the context of how you compete for funding. And again, engineering has to be absolutely solid. But when you get into that boardroom, or when you support people who are going into that boardroom, there's more to the consideration than just dollars or kWh or therms saved. Any questions, comments, thoughts? Parker, what you thinking? Yeah. All right. Okay. Now that we see there's more complexity there, how do you communicate? You've got great ideas. They have value. How do you effectively communicate the values of your idea to those decision makers? I'll just share some thoughts. How many think calculations are like the most important? Whether it's simple payback or therms or kWh or, okay. I was expecting all of you to raise your hand because you're engineers. But you can see I'm kind of leading the witness here. Written proposals, how many of you think that's the most important? No, Alex? Why do you say no, Alex?
I mean, we haven't got down there yet, but there's probably more important things to communicate value than calculations.
You got to do a proposal, right? Some way, some form. You got to get the ideas either on paper or, I'm going to suggest there's a role for leadership and vision, which goes beyond writing. It definitely includes your verbal abilities and sort of, again, who you are as a person, how you're able to create momentum, creating motivation inside a set of decision makers that overcomes. There's always going to be obstacles. There's always going to be inertia. And you as a person, as interesting as it sounds, is your personality, your charm, your chutzpah, your magnetism, your ability to make people laugh. All of these things matter because you're always going to be competing with other good ideas. Politics. As engineers, you may not think, or you may not want to have politics have an influence on whether your idea or somebody else's idea gets funded, but I can promise you it's going to happen. So my question for you is, how are you preparing for it? What are you doing in college to prepare yourself for these challenges? And let me suggest, ability to influence. Yep. The ability to find money and bring money to the table is arguably, from my experience, probably the most valuable skill. I've seen more projects get funded, whether they're a better simple payback or a worse payback, simply because the proponent of the idea figured out how to bring money to the table. Federal, state grants, Kickstarter, energy savings themselves as a way to bring money to the table. again, I'm asking you the question, is this your role? Do you see yourself, maybe not today, but in the near future, like your ability to influence is going to determine whether your calculations get turned into reality? Any thoughts, questions? Michael, I'm interested in your thoughts. You've dealt with this in the real world. How do you see this playing out?
One of the biggest obstacles to getting things done is having enough money to pay for it. And when you're creative and finding solutions to that, when your passion leads you to find creative ways to make things happen, it gives you a much better shot at convincing others to go along with it. And that helps create the motivation or the momentum to have it happen again in the future. I think one of the great success stories in Utah is Justin Owen at Weber State University. When he and his energy management team started doing their zero carbon goals, it was really hard for them to get stakeholders to buy in. With enough success hitting the easy things first, they built momentum to go after the harder things. They got momentum to create a revolving loan fund that's internally financed and pays for itself with the energy savings. And at this point, Justin keeps saying that, you know, the people who run Weber State's financial department love loaning him money because he pays them back at a much higher interest rate than they would get from other places. So starting easy to build that momentum helps to guarantee long-term success.
And thanks for that story. Those of you who sat in on Justin's presentation in the decarbonization track at the conference, you know, heard a little bit of that story. And it's so true. Justin's predecessor was sort of the genius behind the magic that got things really launched. And Michael's description of the 4% that Justin's project pay back to the university gets at that question of internal rate of return. Is when a organization can invest its dollars in something else, like its standard investment, whether it's a stock or a bond or some other thing or a internal project. Every organization has its own internal rate of return percentage. And let's say at Weber State, it's 3%. So Justin's ability to deliver a 4% return is 1% higher than the internal rate of return. So if your project can produce a rate of return that is higher than what the organization sets as its standard, in the private sector, it's like 15% because they have lots of ways to get creative about financing. But anyway, so that's what internal rate of return is. All right. Are you all salespeople? Raise your hand if you think that you fit the description of a salesperson. Nathaniel, right on. Nobody else? Cameron? Paula? No? Mariah? Yes, maybe. Carly, no. Alex? Trayton? You a salesperson? Sorry.
I'd have a different degree if I was.
Is it UA? Not? Okay. Jessica? Maybe. Thomas? No. Parker? Yeah. Lexi? Maybe. Amber? No. Julie?
Absolutely. And by the way, Thomas, I know there's a Lynn has a cliffhanger to get to here, but you're part of the marketing team for the IAC directly. So you are absolutely a salesperson. What is this?
One thing is having like being professional at it, you know? I'm not there yet. I'm on the way there though.
And I guess I should rephrase the question. Do you see yourself as a salesperson? Also, do you see value in yourself being a salesperson? I guess that's the way I should have asked the question, but of course that's a different question. Blake, what's your answer? Are you a salesperson? Yeah. Okay. All right. So I asked each of you individually, and we all like Alex and his funny jokes. Always be closing. I don't know this scene. But I'm sure it's funny. I don't watch much TV. DJ, you gotta. Oh, are you a salesperson, DJ?
We're all salespeople. I put it in the chat.
Sweet. All right. My next slide. From my perspective, and I've got like 4 careers in my history. To be successful, you must be a salesperson. And I can tell you that it took me about 5 years out of college before I learned this lesson. And I had to come to terms with my relationship with money and influencing people and corporations and everything that has to do with the way that the world works. I had to struggle with until I came to the realization, and this gets back to why I wake up in the morning. Part of my purpose in the world is to use the levers of our democracy and our economy to create as much climate good as I possibly can. So for better or worse, that means I have to be a really good salesperson, because I don't want to just do $10,000 projects that save a little bit of KWH. I want to do $100 million projects that knock it out of the park in terms of decatherms and megawatts, right? Gigawatts. That's what I want to do. And I want to encourage all of you to do the same. Because you're on the path. Like, you are like the 0.5% of the 1% of the people in this world who are going to save us, right? So I would encourage you to struggle, go to work, wrestle with yourself, figure out how you have to come to terms with your relationship. Like me, money. I thought all money was evil. Corporations, none can do any good. I've wrestled through all that, and I would encourage you, win that wrestling match with yourself. If, like me, you're in this business to save the planet. Because until you see yourself as a salesperson, everything we were talking about, your charm, your ability to communicate, your ability to convey really big, complicated ideas in a really super simple way to a CFO who's giving you 55 seconds to hear your idea. The sooner you get good at all that stuff, and the sooner you see yourself as the messenger who can save the planet, the bigger impact you're going to have, and the bigger projects you're going to work on, and the more success you're going to have at turning your ideas. Again, let's go back to that bridge idea. I can go all the way back. Like, where are you in this role? Where do you belong? The support is a great place. The hand is a great place. The bridge itself is a great place. The scooter that goes from the idea over here to the money. This is you. You can do this. This is, who else is going to do it if it's not you? You can leave that responsibility to somebody else. But the better you get at being the person who can bridge the gap, the more success you're going to have. Okay, enough of my rah-rah. What do you think? Tell me, am I up in the night? Oh, there he is right there. Oh, screen sharing stopped. Oh, I guess I forgot. Sorry. I will share, let's see, one more screen. You guys see my kid? There's my 7-year-old. I got the shirt on, Grateful Dad. This is what motivates me, and this is why I'm a salesperson. I'm not ashamed of calling myself a salesperson, but I'll tell you, it took me a long time to get there. All right. Now, can I ask you guys, do you want to be a salesperson? An engineer who's a good salesperson? All right, Paula, you still on the fence maybe? Cameron's in. Carly, Alex, Thomas, Nathaniel, Roche, Raul, Mariah, you're smiling. Tell me why.
I've just had this conversation with myself before of I didn't realize I was going to be a salesperson when I graduated, and then here I am, and so I just resonate.
Nobody wants to be a salesperson.
Yeah.
I mean, naturally, are we born salespeople? No. Sales has such a bad connotation, but when you think about it in terms of your purpose and the process of taking what you're learning in college, making it real.
Sometimes I like to think of it in terms of being an energy champion. And sometimes if you read Department of Energy like guides on how to incorporate energy efficiency in an organization, they start off with identify an energy champion, someone who will have the passion to make things happen. And if you're an energy champion, being a salesperson is just one set of tools and resources that you use to get things done. And I like champion is both a noun and a verb. Like to champion something is to get something done by providing lots of encouragement, support, and resources for it. So the tools of a salesperson help you to be a champion for energy efficiency, for climate change, or for whatever makes you passionate or inspires you about what you're doing as an engineer.
Julie, I'm interested in your thoughts, if you want to share.
Sure. Well, I really like Michael tying the concepts of champions to the ideas. I think, Lynn, that your points about being a salesperson are extremely relevant, and I'm certain they're stretching the thoughts and minds of folks here. So the good news is that Mariah didn't get to figure this out until after she graduated, and Lynn took 5 years, Lynn, is that right? To make peace with this piece of it. And you all are at least at best 6 to 9 months from graduation. So you're way ahead of the game, getting introduced to these topics. And really, ultimately, I think this conversation boils down to what our team has heard me say a lot about. I think it's an important time for a lot of folks here to explore their passions and that motivation and that energy that will drive a career. And I think the points that you're making contribute to that thought very much.
Hey, Lynn,
Anybody?
can I add something?
Yeah, go ahead, huh?
So I had somebody on my team ask me on Monday that you wanted to start becoming a people expert instead of a technical expert. And it was a really good question. I have sometime in the last 3 to 5 years, but there wasn't like a moment. Maybe there was. I need to think about it more. But I would just, if this presentation is to provoke thought, looking at some of the hesitation that you guys had when like, maybe I'm a salesperson. And then some people are like, no, I'm not a salesperson, right? And guess what? My dad was in the restaurant business. He owned a restaurant and he hated salespeople. He sold food like that. He sold food and he didn't connect the dots there. So when we think about it, like, I want to leave you guys with that thought of, hey, you're going to get out into the world and there will come a time in your career where you're going to decide, okay, am I just going to double down and be a technical focused person and really be a nerd on equipment, or am I going to pivot and be a nerd on humans? And both are super powerful and the world needs both kinds. But what Lynn is saying is that even if you do make the decision that I'm going to focus on being a technical expert, you still have to have a certain amount of people skills to get the stuff done that you want to get done.
Thanks for your time. Go out there and slay the dragon and save us from a future that none of us want. Go be
Going
great.
back to the first presentation, right? Like we are here to recruit you all as fellow climate warriors. I like climate warrior, Michael, because we are in a fight. And so I think that that's a little bit more applicable.
Climate warrior / energy champion. Yeah,
Climate ninja.
there you go.
That too. I'll take whatever is effective in destroying climate change, right? If we come in the dark of night and slay it, that works too.
Well, awesome. Thank you again, Lynn and DJ and Michael, for all of the contributions you made over the last few weeks. Lexi too. And I'll just say goodbye for now and see the rest of you climate ninjas next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.